Hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody's happy this morning. That's a little remix around the world. I love that little song. That's what it's about this morning. We're going to talk about things this morning from here to around the world. Um, Listen, look forward to this morning and can't wait to get Matt on here just in a few minutes and get started. But listen, before we get started, just want to real quick thank everybody. And also just a reminder, make sure you go in, like every one of our videos. Make sure you like and share. That allows us to reach as much as we can. Also, if you want to give, you can go in and on our Facebook page there, you can go in on Tively and give. Also, we're going to put it up. Also, where you can also give to Matt and Holly Hobson in their ministry and what they're doing. And so want to encourage you to do so when you get a chance, or and also to be part of whatever they're doing on their journey. So it's exciting. Thank you, guys. Also remind you we'll be back in the morning to do our quick devotion in the morning, and so always look forward to doing them. It's good. But listen, so excited this morning. Matt and Holly Hobson, been connected to them guys for quite a few years now. I really don't know exactly, probably 7-8 years maybe, and love them guys. Become part of our family here at Break Free, but more so they've become real family at the house, and spend time together as much as time as we can. We've done mission trips together, different things, but it's always good to see what God's doing in people's life and always hearing what God is doing. That's why we do these on Wednesdays or Fridays, so we can see what God's doing not only in our community, but just people that we're connected with as well. So we want to reach those, even our community, other pastors, other ministries, big, small, or great, however it may be. One thing I don't worry, I'm not a jealous guy, so I don't worry about none of that all that stuff. So we want to see and hear what God's doing, and just be able to get that out there so people can hear, man, even in the midst of some crazy times, God's still doing some good stuff. So anyway, if you guys would listen, make sure you be praying for just every situation we talk about today. I won't be able to mention as we go, but on Matt and Holly's journey, they've got so much going on. So listen, be praying for their ministry, praying for what God's doing with them guys in Alabama. So let's get Matt on here real quick. Good morning, Matt.
What's up, sir?
How are you this morning?
I'm fired up after that little intro.
Yeah, man, that's a good one, ain't it?
I got a little sweat going. I was dancing.
I think it's good for us to move around a little bit and dance.
Then you did I think it was a live you did this week that talked about put your dancing shoes on.
Yeah, it was Tuesday, wasn't it? Yeah, yesterday, Footloose, man. Take off them Sunday shoes.
I like it.
Yeah, well, we need that, man. I think sometimes we need to, move around, get loose a little bit.
You got that right.
Well, so what's going on in Matt and Holly Hobson's world? Let's kind of start with, real quick, and I'll let you do it. Just kind of start where me and you kind of met, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, give a little brief summary.
Yep.
So in 2014, well, back up just a little bit, it'll make more sense. So in 2011, Holly and I had read a book called Radical by David Platt. And in the back of the book, it had a list of commitments or challenges that you should do. One of them was read the Bible through in a year. One of them was start going to, a church every week, having a life group, doing local outreach. And one of them was take an international mission trip to somewhere you've never been. And so Holly, for those of you that know her at Break Free, she's a rule keeper. And so it was getting close to the end of the year, and she's like, hey, we have not hit our goals of going on an international mission trip. Well, I didn't know anybody that went on international mission trips, so I was didn't know what we would be doing or how we would do it. Well, I had remembered, or Holy Spirit had helped remind me that a friend of mine's dad had been to Honduras before. And so I reached out to him and I told him exactly what I just shared about the book. Hey, we need to go on this mission trip. Can you help make it possible? And he said, well, we're not going anywhere soon, but a friend of mine who has a Assembly of God church in Evergreen, Alabama is on a trip coming up. And I'm sure he wouldn't mind you going. So I reached out to this pastor and he said, of course, you're welcome to go. Would love to have you. And we signed up to go and met 23 people we had never met before in Atlanta and headed to Honduras. That was our first mission trip internationally. We'd done some other ones, but not really a mission trip.
So about what year was that? 2012?
2011.
2011.
In 2011, we go on this trip. While we're there on the trip, Holly and I both have a radical encounter with the Holy Spirit. We both get filled with the Spirit. Wake up in the middle of the night praying in a prayer language, had no idea what was going on. Just our whole world was blown. On that same trip, we connected with a pastor here in Alabama who was there preaching a revival separate from the mission trip altogether. He wasn't even part of the mission trip. We just happened to come in contact with him at a big crusade one night. And some of the people on our trip actually went to his church. And so we got connected on that trip, came back, and we started going to that church. We didn't realize it was so close to us. It was about, well, I say close. It was about an hour and a half away. And so we started driving there every Sunday, every Wednesday, just this whole world of these spiritual gifts and everything with the Holy Spirit just kind of started opening up to us, this world of the prophetic, so to speak. So anyway, we did that for a long time. And all of a sudden, I was in sales at the time. I had been a salesman for 20 years in a Fortune 500 company. All of a sudden, I'm on the way to a sales meeting in the evening, and I get a call from this pastor, and he says, hey, could you come up and have lunch with us on Monday and bring your wife, bring Holly? Well, I thought, oh, my God, he's found out about all of our past. Like, the show's over. Like, he's ready to drop.
You thought you were going down, so.
Yeah, I thought I hadn't done anything recently, but, man, there's a lot in the past there he could pick from, so. I thought he's found us out. He's going to ask us to leave the church or something. I mean, you know how your mind goes immediately to the negative. So I tell Holly, I'm like, the jig's up. We've been called into a meeting. And so I just worry my head off the whole time thinking about it. We get up there and he walks in and he says, hey, I want you to quit your job. And I want you to come on staff here with me and help me change the world. And he said, we don't really have any money to pay you to do that. And I'm not even sure how we can hire you, but these people that's in the room with us can kind of figure that out. Enjoy y'all's lunch. And he left the room.
Wow.
And so we ate lunch and they talked about how it could be possible. And we started walking out the door and Holly and I were just by ourselves at this point. And I said, what do you think? And she said, we should do it. She said, what do you think? I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. At this point, I was making a lot of money, 6 figures plus, working very little, doing whatever I wanted to do. Traveling a lot, and we were doing ministry on the side, which was meeting that itch that I had to be in ministry. And so I'm like, there's no way we could do it. Well, we got back home. We started asking everybody, like, what should we do? Should we take this job? Should we not? And at the time, I had sold the largest deal our company had ever sold in the United States. And it was a huge multi-location hospital deal. And I got paid off of install. So I was getting, I was leaving a lot of money on the table if I quit my job and we took this job at the church. But we started asking people what we should do and asking them to pray about it. And literally every person that we talked to, the only issue they brought up was money. And so Holly and I talked and prayed about it. And we thought, if it's only money, I don't ever want that to be the reason that it stops us from doing something God wants us to do. So we called them back. We told them we'll do it. And I quit my job. We moved to a house up here in Oxford, Alabama. And I went on staff in 2014. Holly and I both did, and stayed on staff there up until June of 2014. And I left out a little part of that, a crazy way all that kind of came into play. The day that I got called to have lunch, to come up here and have lunch where they offered me the job, the day before, Benny Hinn was in a service here. And we had gotten invited by the pastor to come and be a special guest. We were just coming in from vacation. And so we drove straight there in like your vacation clothes. And he sits us on the stage in a Benny Hinn meeting. And so it was the most uncomfortable experience I'd ever had. And during that meeting, Beanie shares a personal story, and he shares about sewing into something you want, and he asks everybody to make a donation of $1,000 and write on there a dream that you had. Well, Holly was very money secure at the time, meaning as long as we had it, she was secure. And so I knew she wasn't going to do anything. And I sure as heck wasn't going to write a check to a guy I'd only seen YouTube videos of about let the bodies hit the floor.
That's right.
And so I'm sitting on the stage, and all of a sudden Holly's like nudging me to go down front. She's like, get up and let's go down front. I'm going to write a check. I'm like, have you lost your mind? And so she starts writing this $1,000 check, puts it in an envelope, writes something on the back, and we go down front and they pray for us. I don't even think anything about it. And because we had talked about it when we got married, and that was in 2001, we got married. So we were talking about going into full-time ministry, but for her, she was always concerned we wouldn't have enough money, or I wouldn't be able to provide, or whatever the reason. It was always a huge contention for us. So I get home that night. I didn't even think about it. But I asked her, I'm like, hey, what did you write on the back of the card? Like to sew into a dream that you had for us. And she said, I wrote on there for you to be in full-time ministry.
Wow.
And so the $1,000 towards that. The very next day, I got the call to come up here and have lunch, where they offered me a job to come on staff at full-time at this church. And so I left a little bit of that out, but it was very important because it kind of launched us into this faith journey of just trusting God and not really relying on, what we can do in our money. And then fast forward there, being on staff, one of our very first mission trips in 2014 was to India. And I was told you're going to be going with a pastor from Croatia and some pastor from Tennessee named Chad Conn.
Yeah.
And I had no idea who either one of you were. End up being your dad passed away and you couldn't go. And so we never really connected then. And so I went on to India, which I would have really liked to have had you there, because we spent the time people threatening to kill us and cut our heads off and preaching in underground churches. It'd have been great to have you with us, but that's where we first got connected. And then I don't remember after that how we actually started talking. I think Kent connected us.
Well, I came down to, of course, I talked to Holly on the phone multiple times in preparation of India, because, everything was already bought. And then my dad died, Steve died, and then, of course, had to cancel it all. And it was, so then when I came down to a service, Holly said, meet me out the door. That's when I got to meet both of you guys. And it kind of went from there. And obviously we've went to a bunch of mission trips together and also with teams. So did a lot together, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's so interesting because you get connections all the time, especially working in the ministry I did. It was a very large ministry, and he had a lot of connections worldwide, but rarely do you connect so spirit to spirit with somebody, meaning like, and I know that's not what we're talking about today, but maybe it'll apply somehow. Like when you and I go on a mission trip, we don't discuss what we're talking about. And we'll get up and preach back to back, and it be just perfect alignment of building off of each other. And it's just something about that spirit to spirit connection that you have with people or ministries or things. And that's a little bit of what we feel where we are now at this house, which I'll kind of talk about in a little while. But
yeah, I think, it's like Holly always says, that we are definitely brothers from another mothers. Not only in the pulpit, but outside the pulpit. And it's been good. Yeah, you always, it's hard to find a relationship that even when things don't go perfect, you just go right, keep going, and you don't pay attention to them, where a lot of people makes, mountain out of molehills. And we have been in tight situations. We've been in tough situations. We've been in some aggravation situations. And, but, we've always went through it and made it. And so that to me is what you call relationship. And so, it's a bond that you listen, that you definitely honor it and you respect it. So yeah, let's say fast forward as to where you guys are at now. Now
Okay.
you moved from Oxford. Now you're in Heflin, and
Yeah.
kind of tell us kind of what that looks like.
So about 2 years ago, the church I was working at started having a shift in what they were thinking a normal Sunday service should look like versus, maybe a monthly gathering versus do we meet on campus, online, all that kind of stuff. Then COVID blew up, which kind of escalated all of that situation and conversation.
Yeah,
And
everywhere.
so at the time, my boss was kind of urging everyone at the church, start looking for ways outside of the church you could fund whatever ministry you wanted to do, which is a smart thing to do. Because there's a good chance that the church will not always be able to fund salaries for a bunch of employees, and we should be able to go out and figure out, we're all smart people with skills, and we should be able to figure out how could we offset that cost even and go out and do something to better the community. Around that same time, the talks of ecclesia kind of started erupting where, the church is really two or three that are gathered together, and you can be the church in any outside environment, any job, any ministry. And so we started looking at what all that kind of looked like. And so I looked at what I had, like my skill set, and I have a big media background. I did a lot of media at Word Alive when I worked there. And so I thought, well, I'll just start a media company. And it was perfect timing because with COVID, everybody was going online. And to be honest, man, most of the churches were horrible at it. I mean, it looked like a beheading video from Iraq or something. I mean, they were bad. And so during 2020, when I had preached and went around through all the counties in Alabama for All In, I got to make all these connections and just see how much trouble these churches were in if they couldn't meet on campus every week. And so originally what I did was I wanted to start this company to help churches be able to do that. And then of course with COVID, it just launched me wide open into all kind of areas. And so I started a business, matthobsonmedia.com. I'll put the link up later. And my hope was that this business would fund whatever ministry we wanted to do, whether that would be mission trips, whether that would be, any kind of outside stuff. And so I started moving more and more towards that. The more and more I started doing that and taking on more business, it started taking more of my time away from the church. And I just started feeling guilty of taking a salary and not really working full time at the church. To me, it just didn't make sense. And so I went to my bosses and I'm like, hey, could we talk about maybe cutting my pay some, maybe reducing my church hours a little bit. Let me work more on my company. And, I still want to be in a relationship, still want to go here. Like, I'm just saying, I don't feel right about taking a full salary when I'm making money outside. And I want to be able to have a little more time to work on those kind of things, et cetera. And so we started talking about that and started working towards that. And the more and more I sat in meetings, and the church was planning things 6 months, 3 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year down the road. In my heart, I thought, man, I'm not going to be here for that. I just got this uneasiness of wanting, not wanting to sit in those meetings. I almost felt like a fraud. Right. So I went to the pastor and I told him, I'm like, hey, I need to make an exit plan because God's obviously calling me to do something else. And I want to transition well. So, which to me is always a huge, important thing. I mean, I was taught that from very, very young. Try not to burn any bridges, and always leave a ministry or a job in better shape than, you found it. And so I worked out a 90-day notice, transitioned everything I was doing at the church. And in June of last year, turned in my notice and hit the road. And at the time, had no idea and no offers of what I was going to do. And so Holly is still the assistant at Word Alive for Pastor Kent Maddox. She's still on staff there. But when I left in June, my only goal, the only thing God told me was to not do anything for 6 months and just rest. Just rest and wait and listen and heal and see what he says. And man, that was the hardest 6 months of my life because I'm a producer. I'm always doing, always going, always wanting to do something. And so it was so hard for me not to move forward in things. And the moment that I turned in my notice and said, I'm going to take 6 months, man, the job offers started piling in. I mean, I was getting offers from churches to come co-pastor, churches to come take over their church, community service jobs, salespeople. When they found out I was back on the market, they're blowing my phones up. I mean, I had every person you could think of. It was crazy. And I don't know if that was so much that I was such a hot commodity as it was almost the evil one trying to test me of, are you really serious about taking this rest and hearing what God really wants to say?
That's right.
And so I was so thankful Holly during that time really was a huge help and support and encouragement of telling people he's not doing anything for 6 months. No, he's not going to take this. And it gave me a lot of freedom to respond to people and tell them, hey, for 6 months, I'm not doing anything. I'm just praying. I'm just listening. I'm just waiting. And man, what a lost art waiting on the Lord is.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody wants something to happen, right away.
I think a bigger part of kind of, and where, that taking that rest, but even to be able to hear the Lord in a disconnect, because it's very hard for people to get disconnected, but to make mention, not only to get disconnected, because, our mentality, Matt, is everything always has to end bad.
Yeah.
Nothing ever ends good. Yeah. So with your disconnect with Pastor Kent and Bev and Word Alive, the way to do it in a way that let's do it right. Let's do it good. Let's get that disconnect. But also it's even harder to disconnect from people such it's saying it's our video shut down. You got yours up?
Yeah, it still says live. I would just keep going. It probably just muted it for the thing. We can appeal it afterwards.
Okay. But I think more so the disconnect come when you have such a ministry and such a well-known, like Kent, Maddox, and like Benny Hinn, those connections, because people would rather be known. We want to get our name out there more so than to know what the Lord wants to do for me. So I think, for that, I mean, that's huge for you to do that. So,
when we say disconnect,
I know the rest is good.
I want to make sure we're clear on that. We were only disconnected from my job.
Sure.
Holly and I still go to church there. I'm still in a relationship, and I'm so honoring of Kent and Bev both. I mean, they got, I don't have a seminary degree. I didn't have any church experience. And so they literally took me in a full-time ministry position and essentially just gave me the keys to the kingdom in this worldwide ministry for years. And so I am totally honoring of them and so appreciative of the training I got there and the equipping. And, I have nothing but good things to say about how they treated me and launched me out. But the disconnect, to me, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what I told Kent. I mean, all churches obviously have people leave and even employees, and most people don't handle those things well. And the very last day when Kent and I were talking about it before we actually made it final, we sat on the back steps of the church and I told him, hey, let's do this differently. Like, this could be a good success story for both of us. There's no issues. I've worked incredibly well here as far as I know, doing everything that you've asked. You've done a great job with me. Why don't we stay in a relationship and this be a good thing for everybody? And you're right. You can choose to do things differently.
That's good.
But that disconnect, you're right. That disconnect gave me some freedom to hear and think for myself and kind of land on my own feet. Because most people would say, you're crazy. I mean, I've got a platform literally to the world, through this ministry, and taking a full-time salary and not really having to work, incredibly hard. And so, I got a lot of pushback from a lot of people of why would you do
literally, and I mean literally the whole world.
Yeah. I've been in countries that, even without anybody from the church, and people know who Ken is, know who Benny Hinn is, know who Word Alive, who he is. They watch him online. I mean, it's crazy. So,
it is.
So I disconnected, and our 6 months was kind of running out. Are we trying to figure out what we were going to do? I had a lot of different ministry opportunities and job opportunities out there. And one day Holly was reading the Bible, and I can't remember how we came across it. But at the time, there was a lady here in Heflin, Alabama, and she had a huge house which sits right on the Tallapoosa River, and it was just sitting empty. And in some of the conversations on things that I could possibly do, I got connected with her on something we may be able to do at her house or using her house for. So we were just all in kind of talks on like that. And she had told us, me and another guy that was talking about possibly doing something together, she had told us, look, I'll just give you this house for 2 years and see what you could do with it. And so Holly was reading the Bible and came across this verse and sent it to me because we were trying to pray and figure out what we could do. And it's Acts 28:30 through 31 in the Message translation. Now, remember, this lady just said, why don't I give you this house for 2 years? And so as we're praying about what to do, Holly reads this verse to me that says, Paul lived for 2 years in a rented house.
Wow.
He welcomed everyone who came to visit. He urgently presented all matters of the kingdom of God, explained everything about Jesus, and his door was always open.
That's crazy.
And so we kind of adopted that as our motto here now. And so we reached out to this lady, ended up not doing anything with the guy that was supposed to do something at the house. We got connected with her, and she told us, yes, please, use the house. At the beginning, it was 2 years, but now she says you can do whatever you want to with it. Hopefully it'll be years and years and years on down the road. And so we're now here in Heflin, Alabama, right on the Tallapoosa River. And so our ministry, I'd had a nonprofit.
And it's beautiful.
For several years. Thank you. I'd had a nonprofit for several years, just called it my name because I didn't know what to name it or what I was going to do with it. But in 2017, I had a friend of mine who was on staff with us. She died suddenly. And I was on the way to a Tony Robbins conference. And on the airplane, I had this freak out. I thought, man, if that would have been Kent Maddox that died, I'd be screwed. I've got no job. I've quit my sales job. We're on staff at this church. His church would implode. To me at the time, I would think his church would implode if Kent would have died. Like, what am I going to do? And so on that trip in 2017, I made a decision. I'm going to figure out a way to be able to do ministry without anybody having to be responsible for it other than myself. Right. Started a nonprofit when I came back. I was actually preaching at Break Free in 2017 or maybe in the middle of 2017, 2018, coming back home, and Holly called me and told me, hey, your nonprofit was approved. I don't even need any more paperwork. It was just miraculous. And so we held on to that for a little while, never really did anything with it other than a few mission trips when people needed a tax write-off. And so I changed the name to Nature's Pace, which kind of is a perfect name for where we are. And so we've named this place Nature's Pace. We're using it like a retreat center. It's 10,000 square feet, 4 stories, every deck overlooking the Tallapoosa River, huge swimming pool. And we're doing exactly what that verse said, which is just keep our doors open for anybody that's coming, and we're trying to make the most of it. And obviously we're doing things with it. I'm working on my website right now, but we'll eventually have, nightly stays, like you could rent it as a Airbnb. We definitely rent it out for day events, weekend events, extended stay events. And we've been doing ministry retreats out of it so far. We connected with a couple of recovery centers. And so our first retreat we had was a group of recovery women. We called it a soul detox. They came up and stayed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we just pampered them and treated them to 3 meals a day, just serving them. It's so funny. The women, every room here's got a jacuzzi tub. So none of them had ever been a jacuzzi. So they wore out the bathtubs. I mean, it was just it was an amazing weekend for them and for us. And so that was our first retreat, which we do by donations only. We weren't charging anything for those kind of things. We may eventually charge for like event rentals and things like that, or not stays, but we're trying to use my company and donations to provide a ministry where people don't have to pay to come to do that. And then the next retreat we did, actually, Chad, you were on that one. We had a group of men we took with a partner church of ours, and already had a ton of fruit come from those encounters with several young people on it. So we don't really know all that's possible here. It's got such just a blank slate of possibilities. And we're still praying about it. One of the conversations is having a recovery program that is completely free to anybody that comes, where you don't have to pay to go through it. You don't have to have insurance. You don't have to meet any kind of requirements. That way we're not making any money off of somebody else's suffering, and they're getting some real help. And I don't mean that in a negative way to all recovery centers, but in Alabama anyway, most recovery centers have got a really bad reputation for making a lot of money and the people not really getting a lot of help. So that's one of the conversations on the table. We've talked about taking in people and just letting them live here. But then that would hinder our retreats we do. So I don't know. You guys be praying for us as we continue to pray about all the possibilities of this house. And then obviously we still run, I'm a missionary at heart. So we run all of our missions out of here, which we'll continue to do. I hope to do at least 4, whether that be local or international mission trips a year. Our next one coming up April 1st to Honduras. You can go or give on that trip. Chad's been on there. Several people from Break Free's been on those trips over the years. So it's a really good one, and it's a really good time to go. In the past, Honduras had, I think, 13 teams coming every year, and since COVID, we're the only team that's been back. And we were one of the few teams anyway that would take money down to pay for the food where we could feed all the villages. And so I think unemployment's now back up to over 80% due to all the factories closing down, mass exodus of people. So all of the, real good employees have left to Guatemala or trying to come across the border to the States. I mean, it's just, they're starving physically and spiritually is the way I've been telling everybody. And so it's a real good time to go back. It's a good time to sow into that. I really trust the pastor there and their ministry, Love Without Boundaries. And so that's coming up. So we'll definitely be doing, mission trips out of there and local outreaches here. We offer, different feeding programs you could go be part of. Right. We're taking people in that's coming out of prison or out of jail and mentoring them. And so we're just, again, that verse says it all. I mean, we're literally, the door is open and when you show up, we'll figure out how to help.
Well, and I agree. A couple of weeks ago, I got to come down and because obviously I want to come down and see what's happening and enjoy my time with you guys. And I got to do so. And even just a small amount of days that I was there, just 2 days, because we had to go into another town. But just being at the house and kind of feeling the atmosphere and seeing what it's about, and even, a short time there, you went and met a guy, homeless guy, facing 99 years in prison. Just, kind of shows that where most people, is going to push that away, you're accepting of it. We took him to breakfast and spent some time with him. But
I'm still mad he didn't eat his breakfast, though.
He didn't. I believe he was so tore up about facing
he's a nervous wreck, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was facing a lifetime in prison, but and he kind of got off on a he didn't get 99 years, did he?
He got the best possible scenario for his crime. So yeah, I mean, this guy Chad's mentioning we've been ministering to. We had him here at the house. I started giving him odd jobs to do, kind of been mentoring him, got him in a recovery program. Then he left that program and then got him in another place. And when we met with him, he was supposed to get life in prison with no chance of parole, and miraculously ended up getting 5 years off of a 20-year sentence with split 5. So as long as he does what he's supposed to, he'll serve 5 years, which is a miracle. You think he's 57, 52?
Now 53.
Yeah, and so you're talking about. He's still got plenty of time left when he gets out, and he's got a lot of kids and grandkids, and he's a really good guy. I mean, just obviously bad decisions. And this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it was so funny when you ask him, when did he start drinking? And he was in jail for hitting a woman and killing her while he was under the influence. And his wife at 38 years old, his wife got hit by a drunk driver and killed her. And that's when he started drinking. And so it's just that hurt and that trauma just
13 years
yeah.
earlier, you know, I asked what,
the drop of alcohol until then.
Yeah, he said he never took a drink till he's 38. And I said, why? Because she got killed by a drunk driver. And here he is at 53 facing life for hitting a woman.
Thing. Yeah, drunk at breakfast with us or either hungover. I mean, he had been drinking all night. So,
yeah. But, you know, the thing about that is hopefully right now as he sits in there that he knows that there's grace and there's mercy. Even, you know, because you can't look at his situation and exempt that family that he killed the lady. Yeah. And you know that grace and mercy was poured out on both sides there. So hopefully he wakes up every day with a new outlook.
Well,
and
it's just
because you took the time.
It just set the tone too for this place and for us in this community because he was a outcast. Everyone here, this is a small town. Everyone here knew he killed this woman. Everyone here was friends with this family of who he killed the woman. And so he couldn't even, when he was working here, he couldn't even get out at the hardware store to get stuff we needed for the house. I'd have to go in with a list because he couldn't even show his face in town. Right. So to me, it was the perfect guy that we first got connected with to set the tone of this door is always open to anyone. It doesn't matter what you've done. We'll figure out how to help you. You know, it may not be to help you. And he ended up going to jail, you know, again. So he did get a great, you know, sentence for what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going
the outcome for him. I mean, he was facing 99 years or he was going to run. So you kind of kept him close and the outcome was better for him. And he still has to live with that, which is horrible. But hopefully in this, he grabs a hold of the Lord and finds his way now. But now let's shoot. Now we know what the hinges of your house looks like, and it is a massive 10,000 square foot house. Let's look at real quick. Let's look at April. We got a mission trip coming up April 1 through the 8th.
Yep.
Friday to Friday. Now, most people, when we start talking about missions, especially now, Matt, they really want to shut us out because they're like, we got people in our own backyard. And I get that. And we do. And we honor those as well. We want to be able to minister to anybody we can. But what's April look like for those? I mean, there's a lot of questions. So
let me back up and answer some of these are obvious ones that I get all the time. And since 2011, just to Honduras. Now, I'm not talking about Israel, Peru, Africa, India, just Honduras. I've probably been over 40 plus times now.
Right.
And so I've got relationships with this pastor. I've got relationships with the airport, with the security, with the COVID testing center. I mean, this is the best possible scenario if you want to go on an international mission trip. I've had 12-year-olds and under on it. There is something for everybody to do. But let's back up and talk about the first thing you said. That drives me crazy. And I understand where people are coming from when they say, I got to go to Honduras to help somebody. I can help somebody here. And you said that some of us are. That's the key. Some of us are. More than likely, that's an excuse for you not to do anything.
Right.
Because a lot of times you're not pulling over to even give a guy a ride that's homeless on the side of the road. You're not giving a guy outside the liquor store $5. We're not really helping like we say we are. We kind of use that as an excuse. Not everyone. I get it. Right. There's a ton of people doing a lot of good stuff in the United States. I spent 2 years with a friend of mine before we came on staff at this church, and even after, in a homeless ministry where we cooked meals, 200 meals every week, and we delivered them under bridges and sat down with people and talked to people for 2 years. And in those 2 years, and this was in Birmingham, which has a huge homeless population.
Yeah.
In those 2 years, not one person told me when I asked them the question, were they going to be able to eat today, that they were starving. Every person knew where to go to get a free meal, go to get clothes, go get a shower, even though they were homeless. So the reason I would say the most important reason to go is that's not the way in international countries, in third world countries. They don't have an option. They are physically and spiritually really starving. They can't go down to the Jimmy Hell mission. They can't go to a soup kitchen. They can't. None of that's there. And most of the adults that can work are having to leave and go to another city hours away from their family to try to provide for them. And so here in the United States, yes, we could help people, but there's nobody really starving in the United States. Most every city has a place you could go to get a free meal. That's not the way in third world countries. I mean, you're talking about kids, 8, 10, 12 years old with multiple children from being pimped out and raped by somebody in the community so their family could have money just to buy groceries.
Right.
I mean, this is a different world we're talking about. And
Yes.
so to me, the biggest reason you should go is not to preach, not to try to save people from going to hell, and not to make yourself feel better. It's just to open your eyes that there is a different world out there when you leave this country. And there's a different way people live, and you can't understand it without seeing it with your own eyes. I could talk about it on here. I could share pictures with you. But until you're there watching a mother have to feed someone else's child breast milk straight off the tap because they don't have enough milk, right? And they're passing kids around to the one wet nurse in the village who's got, until you see this kind of stuff, till you see somebody run you down begging you for a bag of food on the road, until you see that kind of stuff with your own eyes, it just, it will blow your mind. I remember I was so unaware, I guess would be a way to say it, of the needs of people outside of the United States. I mean, we like to say we're having a bad day if the water doesn't get scalding hot, much less have to worry about what if we don't have water in the house? What if we can't turn the power on today? It just changes everything. And so one of our very first trips, we were there. This was back before I was even allowed to preach at the places. So I was just a worker. And so we had to go out and we had to put a roof on somewhere. We started talking to this guy. It was me and 2 other guys. We were helping the worker put the roof on this house. We started talking to the guy, asking about the house. This guy told us that he dug out the foundation himself using a broken plate for 2 years and piled the dirt up and took the dirt from 2 years of digging to make the bricks, hand make the bricks, to build the walls of this house that we're now standing in.
Wow.
I was sobbing. And then we put the roof on, work all day, give the family a bag of food. And there's 20-something plus of us. So we all came together, 3 of us on the roof, but everybody else was kind of preaching in the villages. We all came together at this guy's grandmother's house, and she takes the food we gave her to cook all of our lunch. It just blew my mind. And so, it was unbelievable. And so to go and see, that people still live like that in those conditions. We went to a house to pray for a lady who had severe back injuries and problems. And we found out it's because she was sleeping on the springs of a mattress, not even a mattress, just the wire.
The wire.
Like the wire springs of a mattress.
Yeah.
And just so the things we take for granted that you can't even explain it to people without them seeing it firsthand. And I don't mean to paint the picture. This is an amazing group of people who love more than anybody I've ever been in contact with and give more than anybody, to not have anything as much as they give and love Americans is crazy to me. So I don't mean to paint them in a picture of, oh, woe is me, because they don't feel that way. This is the woman that was sleeping on the mattress. You would have thought she was the happiest woman in the world.
Yeah.
And the kid that doesn't have any food, that's playing soccer with his shoes that are cut off and he's just got a piece of tape wrapped around the toe of his shoe. They're not complaining. They're not asking for money. They're not asking you to do anything. And not once since 2011 has this pastor ever asked us to bring money or do anything. This is our choice to raise money and go do extra stuff. He just wants us to come and love on his people. So that was a long answer of why you should go and why we help people in the United States. But on this trip, if you've ever wanted to go on a trip, this is number one, you need a passport. So if you don't have a passport or your passport expires within 6 months, you need to go and get it renewed or go get your passport. It's very easy. You can go to a post office. You can go to a UPS or FedEx store. It's very easy to fill it out. It costs maybe $100, $120, something like that to get your passport. You don't have to have any shots to go on a mission trip, and you don't have to have a COVID vaccine. And they don't even require it. The airline requires a COVID test, which is what every airline requires, whether you're flying internationally or not. So that's the rules right now. All that could change at some point. I don't know. But right now, you don't have to have a vaccine. You don't have to have any kind of shots. All you got to have is a passport and the willingness to go. And there's something for everyone to do. You could help pack food. All that food we give out, we do a big food packing every night at the house. You could help pack food. You could play with kids. You could do kids services. You could preach. You could teach. You could just love on people. You could pray for people. And you could just be an observer, which to me is even probably the most important thing you could do, is to go and just take it all in if it's your first trip and not get so worried about having to do anything. Just go and watch what happens and experience a different culture.
Yeah, well, the Honduran people are quite different, and I you know, I've been in different areas of the world. Honduran people are, you know, they're very loving. You see them, they're not. You wouldn't think that they're the poorest country in the world. Is what I'm saying. Right. Their attitudes doesn't follow the statistic that's on top of them. So amazing people. Pastor Sorto and what they do down there is amazing. I encourage people to be part of this and take your email.
People freak out because it was the number one murder capital in the world at one time and the number one most dangerous airport in the world. Yeah. Well, to address those two issues, because I have a lot of people that will Google like the State Department and look up Honduras travel, and it tells you don't go. Yeah. And this is always the question. The number one murder capital in the world is gang on gang violence in the capital city. It's not killing Americans. It's not killing pastors or Christians. It's gang on gang violence in the capital city, which we're not even going to be there anymore. And that addresses the second question, because we used to fly into the world's most dangerous airport. They just built a brand new airport on the U.S. Base in Camagüey. And so now we fly into this new airport. This will be our first trip in April into the new airport. You don't even go to the capital city. So you're 2 hours away from any danger or violence that could have been perceived in the past. But we've never had one issue. I mean, we walk the streets there. We take our kids there. We encourage people to bring their kids. It's a phenomenal mission trip. It's $320 for your room and board, and you eat like kings. Like rarely do I push food away, but you cannot imagine how much food you eat while you're there. I mean, 3 meals a day. You know, you get a little taste of their culture, but for the most part, they cook very American dishes. You have hot water, which is unusual on a mission trip. So you have a hot shower. You've got a great place to stay in a big gated farm kind of area. His house, his compound, their church is right on the premises. And then so it's $320 room and board, and then whatever your airfare cost, which I just paid for a girl's yesterday. For her, it was $474, and she was flying out of Nashville. So you're talking about, you know, $800, $900 for a week-long mission trip. That's pretty dang good. And I know I had posted on here about how to give. We raise money to take for food, but that doesn't come out of your going money. If you don't want to help raise money for food or projects, don't. Just pay your money and go on the trip. That's a big help already. And that's, if it's your first time, we really prefer that, because I don't want to put any pressure or stress on you trying to contribute to raising funds with us. Right. Now, if you want to raise funds with us, it's $4,600 for 7,000 pounds of food and $500 to build a floor or a roof. And so if you can't go, then consider giving, you know, and we'll take the money and we'll make use of it, especially if you don't want to go. And so people always joke around with me and say, I don't want to go on a mission trip. I'm like, that's fine. Give me money to go.
That's right.
Because, you know, when I read the Great Commission, it says go. And if you don't want to go, the only option out of that, to me, the only little clause like a red tape would be that you give, because whether you're going or you're giving or you're praying or you're all part of that team. And so you're all getting the same, reward for what you're sowing into. So, maybe you're not physically able to go, then give. Maybe you can't give, you're not financially able to give, then pray. I mean, there is a way to be part of what's happening in these different trips and different places in the world. But just do something.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to go internationally, then take me up on that challenge. Start doing something locally. Stop passing up the meth head that's standing in the church parking lot wanting you to give her a ride down to a meth house, or the guy on the side of the road with the sign saying, "I want $5." Well, what if he buys alcohol? Well, what if he does? If I was homeless, I'd want some alcohol too, maybe a pack of cigarettes.
That's right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not thinking about going to a revival. I can promise you that.
That's right.
You got to meet some physical needs before people open up and give you a chance to meet those spiritual needs.
Well, that's what I mentioned the other day, about, what Scott and them do. They've recently, in the past, they'll go in these strip places, bars, and they minister to people. And listen, it doesn't matter of what you do, just do something.
Yeah.
And it takes everybody. And listen, I mean, I'm not the one. I'm not big on two things. Now, I'm not big going in strip joints and ministering to people. And number two, I'm not big on giving people a ride. So, them are two different broad areas. But the thing that we can do is just get involved in some form or fashion.
Yeah. Oh, I can promise you right now, Holly Hobson is not going to allow me to go to a strip club. I could tell her that the Holy Spirit showed up today while she was in Montgomery and audibly spoke to me, and she's going to say, "Well, you heard wrong." That's right. That's right. The only hands ministry I'm gonna have is when she gives me that fivefold ministry upside the head. So,
well, and it takes that, because and there's a big difference in saying that we need to do it here in our own areas, and I agree, but the big difference between here and let's say Honduras is that everybody around here knows the words to manipulate to get what they want. And they look for a handout. They expect you to do that. I've not met anybody truly that don't know how to use the system for their advantage. And we all ignore it because we want to be able to do and want to be able to help. It's like, we talked about recovery the couple last week. That was my focus the last couple of weeks, has been recovery, because it's important in our community. But, and I've been around recovery, and it's not a disrespectful thing, but every person that enters them has a reason why. There's a there's a reason why they're entering. There's a less than 1% going in there saying, I want to be broke free from this drug or alcohol, and I mean that respectfully. But they know how to use the system. They know if I go there, maybe it'll help me in front of a judge, or help me to get off jail time, or help me with my family, or help me with my wife. And there's a low percentage of people that enter these places that says, you know what, I'm doing 100% to get free. And that's how it is on the street. When you give $5 to that one holding a sign, they're not as hungry as that sign says they are. They are looking for a drink, but we don't get blessed off what they do it. We get blessed off by releasing the seed. And
when we first started that homeless ministry, I was so afraid I was going to be taken advantage of like that instead of giving somebody $5, I thought I'll cut out the middleman. So I started finding out when everybody's birthdays were, and I'd bring them a cake and a 6-pack on their birthday. And man, you talking about, and I know, look, I'm sure you'll get some emails about that, but I did it.
I'll put my email up there so they'll send it to me.
Yeah, send it to Chad. I'm sorry, and I would still do it. But you talk about showing up to a guy who's been homeless for 15 years on the street, who's never had a birthday party, and give him a cake and a 6-pack of beer. I mean, that could be the one thing, the one extension of grace that God needed to change his whole life.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
agree.
who knows? Now, could have been the one thing to keep him on the street another 20 years. I don't know. But I was just doing what I thought I should be doing at the time. And that's what I just encourage anybody. Don't go on an international mission trip unless you feel like you're supposed to go. Don't pick up that guy on the street unless you feel like you're supposed to. I don't stop and give everybody $5, but I'm trying to listen and be aware of when I should be helping and what I should be doing. Just this morning, I've got a lady. She's not going to go to Honduras with us, but what she can do, she's a local artist. So she donated a painting that we can auction off to raise money. Like, there is ways to get involved. Just figure out some way to help somebody. I mean, it doesn't have to be hard. It's really simple. Just figure out a way, some way, just to help somebody. And a lot of times that's helping yourself. I mean, so start there. Yeah. But just do something. I mean, that's the only thing. I never get aggravated when people don't go on trips. I assume you're not going. If everybody this year told me I want to go to Honduras in April, we'd have to have 4 or 5 planes.
That's right.
I mean, everybody says they want to go.
Yeah.
But we talked about last night on our leadership call. Commitment, the definition of commitment is results. Saying you want to go and going are two different things. Saying you're helping someone and really helping them are two different things. So just pray about it and figure out. I'm sure God has already told you a way to get involved doing something. And you already know that. Nobody's got to tell you what that is. Just take that little leap of faith and start doing it and watch what happens. I mean, it can blow your mind, of what it opens up. Yeah. You think in my wildest dreams would have thought I'd own my own business, running my own nonprofit, living in this house, overlooking a river. I mean, I'm the worst of the worst. I met my wife at a Bible study while I was married to another woman. I mean, it can't get much worse.
That's right.
Destroyed my whole family. But through that, God has started restoring and renewing things. I mean, we've been married over 20 years now in a godly, faithful marriage. My daughter, who I broke that relationship with, we're talking on the phone, via Facebook messages all the time now after 20 years of no contact. And so just start doing something. I mean, if God can use me, then for sure he can use you, because I would guarantee you there's not much I haven't done out there.
That's right.
And so, I don't think we can outrun his grace and his mercy and his favor if you're just willing to let him pour it out on you.
I agree. Well, that's what happened to me when I first encountered the Lord in 98. I was never knew anything about church, never knew anything about ministry, but I knew in my heart that I always wanted to go and make a difference in other countries. I don't know what it was, but that was one just burnt inside of me. And in 99 into 2000, that's what I did. My first mission. It's I always look back and say it's crazy, because my very first mission trip in 99 was in Honduras. And now the last 7 or 8 years, we have really, made Honduras the place for us to go to. And it's kind of crazy that it goes kind of full circle, but it was burning in me. I just wanted to do something. Yeah. I didn't know the people. I was like you. I didn't have a clue who the people was. It was the First Baptist Church of Shelbyville, a group of people I didn't know, a group of people I had no idea who they were, didn't know anything about the denomination, didn't know. I just knew there was something in me wanted to go and help. That's kind of what I did. Yeah. And it turned out amazing. And, and it's kind of, you got to respond to that's which is on the inside of you. Yeah. And what are you burning for?
If you don't like Honduras, don't go. Tell me where you want to go. The fortunate thing about the years I spent on staff at this church is I've got a lot of connections in just about every part of the world. So if we don't currently go there, which we could schedule a trip around whatever you wanted to do, and I'd be happy to lead it. Or I've connected with people. If you don't like me, which a lot of people don't, or if you don't like Chad and you don't want to go with us, let me know where you want to go, and I'll connect you with the ministry going there. Just go. And we've got all kind of trips: work trips, ministry trips, fun trips, sightseeing trips to Israel. I mean, whatever it is that you want to do, message us. I can make it happen for you. So we, especially if it's mission related or an international trip, I can get you connected and I can get you wherever you want to go. Now, obviously, depending on where you want to go right now, would depend on if the country's open, if if COVID testing is required, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, everywhere we go, it's pretty clear on all that.
Well, good. Well, man, listen, it's been awesome. I hope the video downloads good.
I saw her post. She said she appealed it. You might not be live, so they may have kicked us off live, but you can post it later.
Well, I'm going to have to know more. I'm going to have to know more music, I guess. That's how it is. It is what it is. I guess won't be able to do that no more. But anyway, Matt, thank you so much for coming on here and spending an hour of your time. I know you're busy, so man, all the information for Matt and Holly, we've posted up there a couple of times. Go and connect with them. Listen, if you don't even know them, don't have a clue, you don't have to know them. Go in. He left his Venmo up there. Go in and help. Go ahead and give for this trip coming up in April. Be part of that and be part of this change.
Come down and stay at night at our house.
That's it.
Doors always open.
Yeah, well, we in our leadership meeting last night, I mean, hopefully our two other guys, our pastors here, is going to come down and spend a weekend with you in March.
Hey, real quick, made me think about that when I said the door's always open. When we first moved out here, I thought, man, how could we immediately make an impact in the neighborhood? And so this house, we're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's right on the river, but in this house, there's a huge swimming pool. And the first thing I did before we ever did anything inside was get the swimming pool working and cleaned. And so I just started going door to door to the neighbors. And I'm like, hey, we got a big swimming pool. Come down and use it anytime you want to. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, just consider it like a community pool. And I'll be dang if they didn't take me up on it. I'd get text messages, hey, we're headed to your pool. Hey, we're coming to your pool. And so it was really neat to offer it up to, because it's not ours. I mean, nothing is. I mean, so come down and enjoy it.
Well, I think that's good. And that's kind of how you've always rode, though. I mean, you've always kind of been that open book when it comes to any of the people. I always said, man, you're crazy. It's like when you came here that time and you picked up the meth head out in our church parking lot. I would have just left her out there. I'm just going to be honest. And you took her to the store, got her a pack of cigarettes, and dropped her off at the house. And them are things, man, that I look at that and only thing I can do is just throw my hands up. I mean, because to me, I worry about, most people would worry about, hey, what if she says I done something? What if they pull a gun? And man, you look over that and you just do. And that's the kind of guy that you are. And I think sometimes you even scare Holly when it comes to that stuff. But she's got used to it over these 20 years, man.
Yes. I mean, I took her and the kids under the bridge with the homeless ministry one time, and they were clearing off litter boxes for her to set on and stuff. And I know but she jumped right in. So it'd take a lot to scare Holly. That's for sure.
Well, man, I love you. We appreciate you. Hey, stay on here just for a minute. Give me a second, okay? All right, man. I love you, dude.
Love you, man.
Hey, guys. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day. We love you. Hopefully this comes up again. If it does, please like and share. Hey, we'll see you guys in the morning. Love you guys.